25th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was from Massachusetts, but everyone's clear that this goes in the water, right? This is an amphibious tour. That's what you knew from the very beginning, right? Okay, because you'd be surprised. Sometimes people have no idea. Yeah, they have no idea. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this truck is now a duck. Free public lending library in the United States, in which you could take out books and bring them home. I'm so specific about it. You see, Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston to a prominent Boston family. He lived here till around the age of 17. Now, originally, his mother had been trying to push him in the direction of becoming a minister. So, this is the Henry Wadsworth Longfellow Bridge in front of us, named for the poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Now, inside of Boston Public Garden, coming up to our left-hand side, you're going to see is in, and I'm here to bring you all of Boston's classic hits from the British occupation. Is in, and I'm here to bring you all of Boston's classic hits from the British occupation of the 1760s all the way up to the British invasion of the 1960s. Duck Fab keeps Boston's present and past alive and rocking while this duck's rolling through the streets of Boston. We're going to be broadcasting from all over the city and the Charles River from our mobile studio here, DUKW, Boston's only less rock, more toxic. And in those days, there were only 2 radio stations in all of Boston. One of them was an all-female radio station. Now, is there... I meant to say supply is on shore. Ugh. But, also they were used, they came into great use, actually, in Europe, with the, a lot of the bridges were... There's a gold steaming tea kettle on the corner of the building over there. That was once the emblem of the Oriental Tea Company. A tea room that was in business from the 1870s all the way up through the 1960s. Today graces the front of a Starbucks. But of course there's the dump dirty. Just as soon as the English began to settle this area, this is where they began to bury their dead. John Winthrop, the very first Puritan governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, he's buried over here. And a woman who's reputed to have been one of the very first women to set foot off the main Puritan burying ground. Yeah, it is. To the left-hand side, this is, well, it's kind of a who's who of revolutionary history. This time to the right. So, over here, you're going to see the Granary burying ground and the grave of Samuel Adams, leader and founder of the Sons of Liberty, and one of the 3 signers of the Declaration of Independence, buried over here. His grave is over there to the right. The only place in the world, folks, where you can go to the Beantown pub across the street, order yourself a cold Sam Adams at the bar, and you can stare out the window at the original cold Sam. But his mother, father, and older brother are buried over here. Yeah. But, folks, you see, Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston to a prominent Boston family. He lived here till around the age of 17. Now, originally, his mother had been trying to push him in the direction of becoming a minister. She wanted him to be a good executions and public punishments. But first of all, the Puritans, when they first got here in 1629, they tried settling across the harbor in what would eventually become Charlestown. But they couldn't find enough fresh water. And they heard there was a natural spring at the top of Beacon Hill, and much better land over here for grazing their animals. It wasn't as marshy. And they decided to move over here. So the original 50 acres, they kept 48 open. They are kind of all around us here in this part of Boston. Their motto is, "The city is our campus," which is sort of a clever way of saying we don't really have a campus, just a bunch. Henry Winkler, Fonzie from Happy Days, he's come back a couple of times. Yeah, but then further back is the Charles Playhouse.
Yeah.
So if you want to see Blue Man Group while you're in Boston, We got it made here in Boston. I'm talking about the land itself. The area that we're heading into, as a matter of fact, is part of it. That's because it was a small peninsula called Shawmut, originally by the Native Americans. It meant the place of living waters. It was surrounded on almost all sides by marshes, mudflats, and estuaries, tidal areas of all different kinds. Those are the areas that were filled in later years to make up much of modern-day Boston. Originally, there was one land route in or out of Boston, the Boston Neck. But here's the original landmass on this side, and there's, in light blue, the overlay shows what's been filled in. So, the Back Bay was once an enormous, shallow estuary of the Charles River. The tide used to come all the way back here, mixed with the waters of the Charles River, and fill up to about 10 feet deep at high tide. At low tide, it was mostly mud. Day in and day out for thousands of years that would happen, until the 1850s. 1857, they began to bring in millions upon millions of tons of dirt and gravel. The town, they laid the streets out here, nice and neat in a grid pattern. It was one of the first parts of Boston to have planned streets, but this area is Copley Square. And Copley Square is really the heart of Boston's Back Bay neighborhood. Now, folks, if you're thinking it looks kind of shabby around here, well, it's because they're doing a massive redo of the of Copley Square over here. It's going to look completely different next year. But if any of you are familiar with the TV show The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, church completed in 1877 and designed by an architect named Henry Hobson Richardson. Richardsonian Romanesque is the style. We're going to go around the other side of it in just a minute, but over to our left is Boston Public Library. Boston Public Library was the very first free public lending library in the United States, in which you could take out books and bring them home. I'm so specific about that because in Philadelphia, that was the very first public library, but you couldn't bring the books home. You had to read them there. Yeah, so free public lending library. Yes, right, exactly. But it also has the distinction of being the only public library that is a presidential library. You have the books and papers of John Adams, second president of the U.S., right over there. RH, or, well, it used to be known as Restoration Hardware, but they prefer to go by RH now. But if you're in the market for really expensive, that building was where Boston's Museum of Natural History was founded in 1862 by a group of people who were trying to promote the teaching of the sciences inside of Boston Public Garden. Coming up to our left-hand side, you're going to see Mrs. Mallard and her 8 ducklings over here along a walkway. Jack, cack, lack, back, knack, oack, pack, and quack. If I say that any slower, I'm going to mess it up. But let's try getting the quack in. You ready? You're on the air! All right. But Robert McCloskey's children's book make way for Douglas. Waldo Emerson, the 2 great American 19th century transcendentalist writers, the original hippies, as I like to call them. Walt Whitman, the poet, and Louisa May Alcott, the author of Little Women. She spent her last years living over. He brought it to places where there wasn't any naturally occurring ice. So, coming up to the top of Beacon Hill, look to the left. First of all, you're going to see a statue of the 35th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was from Massachusetts, but this is the Massachusetts State House. This is where all the laws are made for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and offered to anyone outside their own belief system. 122 Bowden Street is over here to the right. And the 3rd floor apartment up there belonged to John F. Kennedy. That was his official residence in voting Massachusetts, so by default we have a lot of them. Now it could be that it's because I'm their spokesperson, but Dr. Fabulous is their most loyal customer. Yeah, Starbucks from the museum. Discount because I work for Boston Duck Tours. But, yeah, but folks, I mean, I'm a tour guide. I need caffeine from wherever I can get it at any time. Immortalize my mother-in-law right out from the Charles Hayden Planetarium. Now, if you want to get a great show about all the moons in our solar system orbiting all the different planets. That's where you want to go. You can also see the dark side of the moon. It's where they played Laser Pink Floyd and David Bowie, the David Bowie Experience. You can also go to the Munger Omni IMAX Theater. Several shows played there. And lots of live presentations like what happens underneath that. Going swimming. Oh, they got us. They got us. Yeah. Sounded like they were yelling for help. So I want to show you folks something. Coming up to the left, you're going to see in front of the Hult International Business School a big slab of concrete over here. That is an original piece of the Berlin Wall.
Oh, wow.
Now, that particular piece of the Berlin Wall was a gift to Bertel Hult, the founder of EF, Education First, for his 50th birthday from all the employees of EF. And at the time, their motto was breaking down cultural barriers through language and education. They specialize in language immersion programs of all different kinds. And this is their North American headquarters all around us here. So, we're going to be heading into the water momentarily. I just want to... Everyone's clear that this goes in the water, right?
Yeah.
This is an amphibious tour. That's what you knew from the very beginning, right? Okay, because you'd be surprised. Sometimes people have no idea.
It's like a ski slope.
Yeah, they have no idea.
Cool.
But folks, that's why we have life jackets. For those of you who think small-bodied people, kids, children, you have life jackets. For those of you under 90 pounds, you got the red tabs on those. Now with the yellow tabs to our left, head into the water. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this truck is now a duck. And because this truck is now a duck, let's have two big quacks for no reason at all. You're on the air. Excellent. So, the Charles River, folks, that's what this is. It's named, well, this was named by the very first Englishman to chart this area back in Surrey, just beyond the bridge to our front left. Now today, both doors stay permanently inside the wall, but this one would have slid shut behind us after we went in there, gone into a niche in the wall. They would have tied us onto the bollards up here, and they would have equalized the water level, matching the water on the other side of the basin. When they were done doing that, they would have slid open the giant door up there, and then we would have been able to go right through. But the air! So, whenever you hear Deshawn do this prolonged horn blast, we have to vent in turns or in meanders. So, this is the Henry Wadsworth Longfellow Bridge in front of us, named for the poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Now, he is most well known for having written a poem about a guy named Paul Revere and what he did the night before the American Revolution began, April 18th, 1775, where he helped to sound the alarm about the British troop movements. Come listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere and all that good stuff. But Longfellow, he wrote a lot of poems in his life, and that included a poem about the original bridge that once stood in this very spot. That was the old West Boston Bridge, and he used to cross it very frequently, and he even wrote a poem about it, a very dark and dreary, lugubrious poem about regrets, dark skies, and dark waters, just entitled The Bridge. So when they replaced it in 1907 with this bridge, they decided to call the new bridge the Henry Wadsworth Longfellow Bridge. Now, as we break on through to the other side, you get a pretty nice view of Boston's sky. There's a building that sort of looks like an enormous cheese grater in the distance. That is the Prudential Tower, or PRU. We love to abbreviate the names of things around here, so we just call it the PRU. A number of radio stations broadcast from up there. One of them is a classic rock station called WCLX. So you're going to hear things like 20,000 watts from the top of the PRU, WCLX. Then the other building that has the big black stripe running down the side of it, the tallest building not only in Boston but all of New England, 10,344 panes of glass in 200 Clarendon Street. Yeah, that's what the current owners want us to call it. That's a losing battle. No one's ever going to call it that. It's always going to be the John Hancock Tower. But that was completed in 1976. Shortly thereafter, many of those panes of glass began to pop out of their frames and fall to the ground. Hardburn and Irish. But, folks, this was a very filthy, dirty, disgusting, polluted river for many years. And I'm not talking about a couple of, bottles or, other objects floating in the river. I'm talking about heavy industrial pollution, raw sewage, chemicals, and things like that. Love that dirty water. Ow, Boston, you're my home. Retired military or veterans, and if any of you fit those categories, you want to sign the roof at the end of the tour. Once everyone gets off, just remind me I got a Sharpie marker right here. But that's all except for Kilroy was here, which you'll see in a few places. There's one right there. There's another one there, and I think there's another one all the way in the back. That's a little something that dates from World War II, like the vessel we're in. Keep quacking these guys, you ready? You're on the air! And among Jimmy's duties as a foreman, he counted the rivets driven by the riveters. So it'll just bleed right through. The result was hundreds and hundreds of ships produced in this one shipyard, sent all over the world, with Kilroy was here, written all over them, inside and out. And of course, U.S. troops the entire time along the propeller. By the way, the wheels just hang down. They don't fold up or anything like that. It's not like Doc Brown's time machine. We're not that fancy.
Whack, whack.
Front wheels, rear wheels, and he shuts off the propeller, shuts off the rear drive. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this duck becomes a truck once again. What do you think of that? Okay, all right, you ready? You're on the air! So folks, if that, I definitely know what will. Boston Sand and Gravel, which is over here to the right-hand side. Everyone give it up for Boston Sand and Gravel. It's very exciting, isn't it? 20-year-long, $22 billion project, and its main aim was to put I-93 in a tunnel underneath Boston to replace the old elevated steel highway, which used to cut right through the center of the city, the old central artery, which no matter what time of day you want, it was always a parking lot I could...